Hello everyone, this is part 4 of What If Naruto Trained Hinata, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Naruto, Hinata and Tsunade stood before a huge mansion, hidden in the forest. Is this the Uzumaki mansion? Naruto said in disbelief. The Hokage walked towards the door and got a key ring. She was about to open the door as she turned around. Here, it's yours now. She made a huge grin as she gave Naruto the key ring. Naruto opened the gate as he walked in, Hinata and finally Tsunade after him. Wow, was all they could say as they walked around. The mansion had a huge garden with a large pond after the entrance. It had a small red bridge over it and many fish swimming in it. In the middle of each round side stood a small statue out of the water. One was a small cat, curled up atop of a small altar, the other was a large tiger. It was in a protective stance, showing off his fangs. What do those statues stand for, Tsunade Bar-chan? Naruto asked as he pointed out to the two pure white beasts. It's about growth. Children seem to be cute and weak yet, when grown up they seem mess and ferocious yet protective. She smiled as they walked across the small bridge. The mansion was hidden in the woods next to the Hokage's mountain and the back side was against the mountain. The house had 3 levels and was a traditional Japanese house, not large enough for someone royal yet too large for a person that is head of a clan. They walked besides the house and found a small fence keeping one part of the garden shielded from wind and view. Next to it was a small house with bath, engraved on a sign before it. There is a hot spring from the mountain that leads to your garden. It's just perfect. I hope you'll find it useful for relaxing. Tsunade laughed as they continued. They walked a stone path as going past various plants, trees and flower bee. In the back, to the side there was a not too large building. It was a training hall with various weapons on the walls and several pillars. It had a high roof with a construction of dark frames, perfect for hiding. There were several places on the ground that were marked. Tsunade showed them that you could flip the floor plates that were marked up and then push them vertically into the ground. A small hole would be shown with a second layer of flower mats around it. She walked to the side and revealed a door to a storage room with various target dummies, training poles and even some constructions that could be set up to fight on or around. They walked outside and followed the path towards the mountain wall. It ended at a small entrance where they walked in. They found a small cave path and followed it until they reached a large room. It was both a tomb and place of meditation. Several seats were placed in a large egg-shaped circle with one red at the head. There were several large candlesticks with white, untouched, candles in them. Tsunade explained that this was the meeting room for the clan when it was before the war and also was the tomb for all the main family. There was a main and a branch family, but they didn't use the same method as the Hyugas. They used to give the branch members a special tattoo when they were around the age of 12, showing that they were Uzumaki branch members. On their shoulders, it was the leaf of Konoha that is now used for Anbu members. They went out of the cave and finally reached the house itself. They entered at the main entrance. There was a small wall with a cupboard for shoes right after the entrance and a line of hooks for coats or cloaks. They continued as they reached a second door. Opening it, they revealed a larger hall with a staircase that went upstairs, but first they went to the first of 4 side doors and 2 doors in the back. It showed a main living room, a few couches, enough for a large family with friends to sit. A large screen that was really outdated but still huge for its time of production and a portrait of a young man that looked except for a few years of age, just like Naruto. Behind him were 2 parents and his mother even had a baby in her arm. Besides hung another one with Yondaime and his wife which was pregnant. Yondaime in his usual white cloak with red flames on the bottom, a black jacket with white shirt under it and a simple black pants and sandals. His wife had a black, silver kimono with a bird, leaf pattern on it, made from silver-colored thread. She had long light brown hair and they both had a casual smile on their face, showing their happiness. Naruto stared at them for a while before Tsunade and Hinata dragged him back to the hall. They went into the second door and found a grand kitchen with a side door. The door led it to the first room in the back as it was a dining room, simple with a small square table. It also had a larger table that stood against the wall, probably for when there were many quests or so. They went back, troughed the door and saw the back side of the staircase. It showed a small hidden door that Tsunade opened. This leads directly to a hidden opening behind the Hokage building. As this was the land of the Uzumaki and they were the strongest shinobi, they made a contract with the first Hokage to be able to protect them when needed. Later the Uchiha clan took main control over the security, but that wasn't until the first Hokage stopped with his unofficial rule and began as the official first Hokage of Konoha. They also found another door to the back which showed a small hallway to the backyard. Like every room, it was simple yet grand. All rooms had side doors to the gardens. They continued to the last room and found that it was empty except for a small altar in the center. It had a small standard on it with two identical swords, both red-black. It also had few old armor suits on standards lined up in the back. Back in the hallway they went upstairs and found a equal hall, another staircase like the one below and 6 doors in total, 4 to the sides and 2 to the back. Tsunade showed him the 2 side doors in front. One led to a room, entirely decorated for a baby, everything was prepared, and the second was the master B with one grand B in the middle. It was a more western style B and had pillars on all 4 corners, a big roof and curtains along the sides. There was a small cupboard and a closet as well as a few hanging cupboards. Right across the B were a few pictures, all of Yondaime and his wife and friends and even a young Jiraiya and Tsunade with the third. Tsunade pulled them back as she showed him the other rooms. All were guest rooms except for one. It had a lot of bookcases and in the center were a few good chairs and a small table. All books and scrolls had les on them of jutsus and techniques. This is the Nin Library, a large collection of all the ninjutsu, genjutsu and taijutsu that your family had, used and knew. Also there are many explanations of them and their history, who made them, who changed them. It can all be found here. The council didn't want to waste this information yet. They made a special Anbu squad that concentrated on it and adjusted what was necessary. Some records were added and it is all copied, in case of fire. You can see that there are some scrolls that have red lockers on them. They are special Uzumaki jutsus, like the Grand Fireball technique from Uchiha. You shall find many of the usual Konoha techniques in them. Tsunade said as she picked one of the scrolls and showed it to them. It contained the genjutsu that Kakashi used on Sakura in Team 7's first fight. Upstairs is a large library with just normal books. Also there is a pool table there. Yondaime liked to play some games with his friends. Tsunade laughed as they walked out. She showed him the table and showed him to the sides. Each side of the large square had a movable wall. She opened one. It showed a view that went above most of the trees. Tsunade opened 2 more, as one was directed at the wall of the Hokage mountain, and the view was breathtaking. You could see almost entire Konoha and far enough to see past the Fireland's borders. Wow, this is all so much. Why wasn't I told of this before? Naruto asked as he sat down on one of the leather couches. If you would grow up here there would be a large opportunity that you would get an enormous ego, and besides, except for the adults no one was to know about it, so you couldn't ever tell someone where you came from, where you lived or the history of your family, she said as she sat down on his left side. Hinata sat down on his right and for the first time she spoke. This is so huge, was all she could whisper. Tsunade and Naruto laughed. Indeed it is. I will order the cleaner to come tomorrow morning so you can meet her. She worked here for your father and I'll bet she wants to work for you as well, Tsunade said as she leaned back. I'll tell you one thing tough. Your parents have made a real nice home. The last clan house was about twice as big as the Hyuga mansion but it was destroyed during the Second Great Shinobi War, Tsunade said as she stood up and walked to the staircase. Of course I expect to see you in my office tonight. After the last 19 years of having no clan leader and thus not really having the Uzumaki clan official alive, I hope that I can appoint you to be so. I mean, only a Junin can do that. She made an evil grin and laughed a bit. And perhaps you should also not tell any of this to your father unless it is official, Hinata. Let's just say Hyuga and Uzumaki aren't the best friends. Both your fathers were competitive rivals as they were growing even more and more when they were both clan leaders. At some point they were even seen as friendly enemies instead of rivals. She smiled as she continued, so you'd better not tell your father unless he can't fight the fact that Naruto is the new clan head. She smiled even more. Don't let it grow to your head and keep it with respect, Naruto-kun, was all she said before she winked and went down. We need a party. Naruto smiled as Hinata ran to the balcony and jumped down where they landed into the outdoor bath. Several hours later, Naruto knocked on the door. Tsunade yelled that she was in. When she saw that it was Naruto she was surprised. Why did you knock? was all she could mutter as he usually tended to crash trough her window or just rushed in. Hinata told me, she said that I needed to act more decent now that I am Junin and since I am about to be clan head. He smiled as he sat down and showed off with a grin. Well, that may be, but before you are there is going to be something I bet you'd enjoy, she said as she gave him a sarcastic smile while pulling some papers forward. You'll have to catch up in paperwork. For the last 19 years she pilled up more and more papers as she laughed more and more. Naruto almost fell off of the chair he sat on when someone knocked on the door. Come in, Tsunade said. Shikamaru and Temari entered the room. Just before they closed the door a voice yelled, "Wait, leave it open," Sakura yelled as she walked in with a box with more paper arising from it so that she could barely see. Hey Naruto, I heard you gained Junin rank. She stated more than asking and put the box down before Tsunade, who laughed even more as she added it to the pile of work for Naruto. Shikamaru gave Tsunade a report and was about to leave when Naruto told him to wait. There will be a party at my clan house tomorrow night. You can come to if you want, Temari-sama, and bring your brothers if they're in town. I want to talk to Gaara about something. He smiled as he turned to Sakura. Sakura, could you do me a favor? He asked as he stood up and walked to the huge pile of work. What? She asked with a sad voice. Damn it, he has a party and I am not invited. Exclamation mark quote. She almost yelled in her mind. Wait, did he just say his clan house? She almost said out loud as she tried to smile to Naruto. Could you give the invitations to the other teams as well as that you can come, of course? He smiled at her as he began browsing through the paperwork. Alright, every shinobi around our age that you know, you mean? She asked as he nodded and Pen Tsunade could just manage to lift before she fell to the ground laughing from his sad face. Are you saying you're a clan head now, Naruto? Shikamaru said. Why, of course I am. I wouldn't be filling out all these papers when I wasn't, now should I? Naruto smiled as he continued with the paperwork. And which clan might that be? All the clans I know have heads, or did you k one of them just now? He asked suspiciously. I know I am the smartest in the room, well, maybe except Temari, he thought. So what's going on here? He asked himself before Naruto answered. Oh, that's easy. I'm the son of Yonda. I'm the fourth Hokage and he was leader of the Uzumaki clan. Now that I'm Junin I can be the next, Naruto said as he made such a wide grin his jaw was about to break. Shikamaru, Temari and Sakura both almost fell down as Sakura actually sat down because her legs couldn't handle it. Naruto laughed just before he saw Tsunade crawl into her chair and point to his mountain of work. Meanwhile Hinata returned to her home. Why was I never told that you were so strong? Neji finally spoke as they ate their lunch. What do you mean, Neji-ni-san? Hinata asked, a bit shocked. I meant, how could I not even touch you while I was able to beat you when I wasn't even using 10 of my strength in the first Chunin exam? He almost whispered, afraid that anyone would hear. Hinata blushed a bit when her father came in. He sat down and got a plate and some food. I heard of what heard on your little exam yesterday, he said as he silently began to eat and looked straight ahead. Why didn't you show this power sooner, Hinata? He said coldly as he continued to eat like they weren't there at all. I wanted to become Chunin together with Naruto-kun. As she said that Hiashi choked in his food and when he coughed a bit he completely flipped. Never ever call an Uzumaki your loved one. He screamed out as he almost broke the table with his fist. Hinata began blushing. Suddenly she changed. Why shouldn't I? Naruto-kun is my friend and I care for him. She screamed out and Neji was downright confused for the second within the last 24 hours. Another confusion and he would lose his mind, as he wandered out of the room, scarred for the two forces clashing onto each other. Why can't I like Naruto-kun? She said as she got a head like a tomato and sat down again, after she saw her father almost jump to the back of the room. He never had his daughter speak to him out loud, stand alone, yell and go against him. I loved him as long as I can remember and I'm not going to stop just because you couldn't like his father. She said as she quickly held her hand for her mouth, shocked what she said. He suddenly widened his eyes as he lost control of his face, his jaw fell open. How did you know that? He asked, ashamed that he was screaming against his daughter in such a way. I heard about the Kyuubi and Naruto, and on our last mission we met our old man who remembered the fourth as he saw Naruto. After some moments I realized it. She made up quickly as part of it was true. You know about the fox and yet you love that demon. Hiashi couldn't believe what he was hearing. One mission with Naruto changed his daughter from a shy weak genin into a strong outgoing woman who was prepared to fight him. He is not the fox, he only has it sealed within him. She shouted as she ran out the room with tears in her eyes. Why can't you see something so obvious when you are able to see trough everything and are even the clan leader? She screamed to the air as she was outside. Neji sat in his room, trying to meditate when he heard the screams of Hinata. He couldn't hear what she was saying but he knew it was something destructive. Naruto was finally done after 3.5 hours of paperwork as he signed the last one and placed it on the top of the huge amount of signed, read and filled in papers. Tsunade Bar-chan, I'm done with all this paperwork, all forms have been signed and the doents have been changed into my information, he said as he lazily stood up and fell down on the couch in the back of her office. She looked up and smiled. I guess you don't like all the paperwork all that much then. She smiled even more. I don't mind doing it, it's just that I am exited about tonight, Naruto said as he looked dreamy to the ceiling. Good. When you are Hokage you need to do a lot of paperwork, if I knew it was this much I'd never do it, she laughed as she saw him jump up. I get to be Hokage. He cheered out as he jumped up and down. I didn't say that, just if you were to be, she sneered back at him before she heard a knock on the door before it opened. Sakura walked in with another pile of papers, then you won't mind filling this in as well. She began laughing again as she saw Naruto admit his defeat and sat down with a sad face. Come on now, I'm here to keep you company, normally you would do it on your own time alone. She laughed as she gave him a small poke with her pen before she continued reading an important scroll. Hinata ran to her room. How could father ever think of him like that? Tears run across her face as she angrily packed some clothing and her diary. I'll just go then, if they cannot accept that I have an own well then I don't want to accept them. She thought as she the last bit and left her room. Where are you going? A familiar voice was heard as she turned around. Neji leaned to the wall next to her door with his eyes closed. I'm going away for a short time. If father doesn't want me then I don't want to be his daughter. She said firmly as she kept walking. Neji followed her. You know he loves you. It's just that he hates Naruto for what he is, he said coolly as they saw the gate. Who are you to judge Naruto? Do you even know what childhood he had, how much worse it was than yours and what has happened to him? She was really pissed off now and the guards, who were ordered to stop her if she tried to go to Naruto again, almost wet their pants when she looked at them. I just know that Hiashi-sama has a problem with Uzumaki, and that the whole village hates Naruto for a foxy thing that he can't even do anything about himself, Neji said the moment they turned the corner and were alone. How did you know? She turned around, suddenly afraid that her father had said bad things about Naruto to Neji. Your father told me. I didn't believe him completely because he wanted to stir my hatred towards Naruto ever since the exam, but when I went to the Hokage she explained how it happened and why he was hated. She also told me to talk to no one about it. He leaned against the wall again and looked straight at her. I know you love him and that he loves you back is no more secret. Just don't forget that you're still the Hyuga heir. I don't want to see your young sister running the place here. She is now already a puppet of the council. Even more than your father realizes, he said. After that he nodded and leaped over the wall and went back to the house. Sunken in thoughts, Hinata walked to the Uzumaki house. Naruto leaned back as he threw the last piece of paper on the Hokage's desk. Tsunade was sleeping in her chair while still holding a scroll so that it seemed that she was reading. It looked normally but after half an hour the same page would get boring. Looks like someone had enough practice on how to sleep undetected. Naruto smirked as he stood up. He walked around the desk and looked in the top drawer. He found what he was looking for and opened it further. The sound of sake bottles was heard loudly as he a few of them and laughed out loud calling, "Oh look, some free sake." And to his greater fun it worked. Tsunade's left hand shot out to his wrist and with great strength it was twisted until he was forced to let go of the bottles. Then Tsunade woke up. Naruto, what are you doing? She asked as she saw he was almost laying on the ground laughing. I just needed to wake you up, and what better way than to steal your sake? He smiled as he stood up again and put all the bottles back again. Anyways, I'm done with that paperwork. I just got one question. The twisted red swirl that we all wear on the Chunin vests and is seen all over Konoha, is it somewhat related to the Uzumaki clan? He asked as he sat down and pointed to the same swirl that was seen on many doents along with the Konoha leaf. Ah yes, I guess I forgot to tell you, but, just as the leaf tattoo the Anbu use, we received it from your clan. Just as the police use the Uchiha symbol, the rest of the village uses your symbol. She smiled as she walked to the door. Shizune. She yelled out, and a moment later a petrified Shizune stood in front of her. Could you get us some tea and bring the clan leaders to the council room, would you? She smiled as she pointed out to Naruto. Shizune smiled and disappeared as Tsunade closed the door. There is only one thing left to do before you are head. The other clan heads need to meet you. Now don't worry, they can't stop it, she said as he turned a sad face. He knew they wouldn't like him. And if they object, we can always use the official rules. She smiled even more as she walked to a closet and got a huge old book. What do you mean? He asked while she opened the book. The Uzumaki clan was the first clan here, and the first Hokage asked them to use their land. In time Hyuga, Uchiha and other clans joined us, but before that, only you were here. She made a sound of victory as she found the page she was looking for and went to her desk. Your clan head and council at the time then, made a few agreement then, so you are actually the most powerful clan head at the moment. She began to laugh as she read the page out loud. Any Uzumaki is allowed to become clan head whether he is or is not of the main family. If an Uzumaki clan head is defied by another clan head, he has the upper voice, a vote of 5 against 1 to any of the other clans. If there are more than 5 votes, however, the others are the higher force. That is, unless the current Hokage stands behind the Uzumaki, then the other clan heads have no vote whatsoever. If an Uzumaki is satisfied with the current Hokage, they can fight him to show that they are a better leader. This only goes in time of war. The list goes on, but this is what was important. She winked to Naruto as she put the book away, and Shizune appeared with 2 cups of tea. The clan heads are on their way. The Hyuga demanded to know what he was coming for. I said it's about a young boy. She smiled as she looked towards Tsunade. I knew I could count on you to piss him off. Tsunade smiled back and drank her tea. A few minutes later, Tsunade, Shizune and Naruto walked towards the council room as she pushed him into a seat. Wait here until Shizune comes to get you. I want to surprise them. She gave him a wink before she entered the room. Gentlemen, I suppose you all came here without knowledge about who or what this was about. Before you begin your questions, I need to tell you about something, Tsunade said as she walked to her chair, sat down, and Shizune waited behind her. Yesterday I held her off the record exam for 2 most promising genin. They did so well that they are now both promoted to Junin, she continued as she looked around. She saw all faces in astonishment except for Hyuga Hiashi. He looked like he was about to explode. Right back at you, she smirked before she continued. It has been many years since we had a change in the ruling clans. Now, however, a change will be made. She smirked as she gave Shizune a nod. I present you, the new Uzumaki clan head. I know you all knew this day would come. She smiled even more as many of the heads stood up in anger. Naruto walked in, having a serious yet calm face. He still wore his completely black outfit and had his long black leather coat on. Many of the heads were confused. The boy they remembered was a young troublemaker who was always in bright orange, foolish and hyperactive. What they saw here was not a young foolish boy. They saw a young man, trustworthy and strong, an impressive view that forced many to sit down again. Only one man remained, Hyuga Hiashi. This is an outrage. I say we outvote him to become leader. We can't have a demon in charge of a clan. Besides, he is all alone, and you can't even have a clan if you're alone. Hiashi almost began screaming, but the look on Tsunade's face forced him to sit down. I believe you all know the rules and history about the Uzumaki clan, such as that he outvotes all of you if he gets my support, which he has. Tsunade smiled as she pointed Naruto to a chair at her right. He sat down and looked around seriously. If I may, he asked Tsunade. She nodded and sat down. I know this is rather sudden, but I need to say something. For years I've been trying to be acknowledged by the village. Now I have a great part of the young people who know me and know I am not the Kyuubi. I have him sealed within me. I cannot believe that, when you trusted Yondaime, you still thought that the Kyuubi could control my body, he said as he looked around. A few faces almost turned inside out by this frontal attack. I have no intention whatsoever to destroy this village or any of you. Also, I am just finished with the paperwork for the last 19 years. He turned his head to Hiashi. And, I've read the rules and I'm not the foolish young boy you once knew. I know what I can and cannot do. I hope you can accept this. And if not, you'll still just have to. He finished and gave Tsunade a nod. Alright then, I hope you all will give the news to your clan, not to mention that you will acknowledge him for who he is. She stood up. All followed. They all gave her a nod and turned to the door. Now that that's finished, I want to show you one last thing. Tsunade smiled as she gave Shizune a nod. Shizune ran away and after a few minutes she came back with a long wooden box. This was your father's. It was held within your family and handed down from father to son when the son became Junin. I believe you will find a description on how to use it in your library. She smiled as she handed him the box. Naruto laid it on the table and opened it. It contained a twin sword, but something was different. He picked it up and G the handle. The moment he G it, he felt his chakra connect to the sword and mix with it. It is a chakra blade, made at the beginning of the Uzumaki clan's forming. We believe it is made from various metals, as well as a rare metal that only found on meteors. Every time you grab it, it is supposed to connect to you, but only if you are Uzumaki. Any others would just feel like it wants to be released. There's one more thing though, it required every one of your ancestors a few years to master it. Until you think you are ready, you should carry it around wherever you go, make it a part of you. She smiled as he put it down in the box again and they walked out. On the street Naruto was looked at, but this time it was different. He always felt burning eyes in his back, only this time mostly the younger people but also some elders just greeted him. As always, nothing can stay secret for long in Konoha, unless it was a S-rank secret. It wasn't a secret at all. Naruto smiled and felt better than he ever had, except for the time with Hinata, and almost laughed as suddenly Konohamaru appeared with a huge grin. Naruto ni-san, he yelled as he jumped off of a roof and landed just in front of him. Have you really Heihachi to gain the rank of Junin and become clan leader? He asked as he ran around him. Naruto began laughing at the idea and explained him how it really happened. When he was done they were at the edge of the forest. Why are you going to the forest then? Don't you have a clan house now? Konohamaru was still amazed by the story and forgot that he had his clan house in the forest as Naruto smiled. I'll show it to you if you promise me one thing. Konohamaru almost jumped and agreed as they walked towards his house. I want this house and the real story to be an A-rank secret. Don't tell anyone, not even your closest friends, nor Iruka. He smiled as Konohamaru nodded. There, that's settled. Only a week and everyone will know how it began and where my clan house is, he thought as he grinned and showed Konohamaru his house. I'll give you a tour later. Now I need to take care of something, he said as he tried to unlock the gate and found that it was open. He walked inside and went to the house. When he entered he saw Hinata's sandals and heard something in the main living room as he pulled out his coat and sandals and put them away. He walked in and found her sitting on one of the couches in the corner, crying. Hinata-chan, what's wrong? He asked as he sat down and turned her to him. As soon as she saw him she G him and pulled him down to the couch where they laid still. She was still crying but she buried her head in his sea as she muttered something. I can't hear you Hinata. He G her head and gently turned it up. My father doesn't want us to be together anymore. She snickered between her tears as he smiled. Why is that funny Naruto-kun? She asked as he was about to laugh. I just had a meeting with the Hokage and all clan heads. I am now clan head of the Uzumaki clan. He smiled even more as he continued. And your father agreed to it. He sealed it with a K to her forehead and held her tightly as he felt her crying stopped. He really did. And what about the other heads? Did they just acknowledge that you are to be one of them? She asked as she turned up again, with a huge grin this time. They all did, seems to be. If you're an Uzumaki, you can outvote 5-1. And if you have support from the Hokage it is not even a decision. It is a statement. They both laughed and almost fell down. Now, there is only one problem, he said as he sat up and G her hands. Suddenly serious Hinata was confused about it. What's wrong? She asked as he looked to the ground, then he looked her in the eyes. You love me right? He asked. She just nodded heavily before he said, your father made a valid point at the meeting. You can't be leader of a clan, when there is only one person. Silence ruled for a while and they looked at each other, both knowing what had to be done. Suddenly Naruto kneeled as he looked up. Will you marry me? Hinata was stunned. She was to be married to someone her clan decided. Not only that, what would her father say of this? Hinata pulled her hand away. She curled up and began crying. Naruto sat down next to her and put his arms around her. You don't have to decide right now. I'll wait forever if that's what it takes, he whispered into her ear before he sealed it with a K. She put her hands to her waist and made a serious face. Before I make my decision we need to have a housewarming party. She smiled and Naruto jumped up. I know. When I was at Tsunade I took care of some invitations, all our friends are coming, anyone you want to have over as well. He smiled as he ran to a small desk on the corner of the living room which he had brought in that morning from his old place. Can my little sister and Neji come? She asked as she sat down left of him and his arm. Sure. I also asked Konohamaru and his team, so it's no problem. He began writing some invitations. That night several shinobi got visited by Sakura and received an invitation to a party, all had their name described on top as well as this opening. You are hereby invited to the housewarming party of the new clan of Konoha. The party begins at 8 tomorrow and it is forbidden to carry weapons. Extra guests are allowed within the boundaries. Wear something casual and don't tell about it to anyone unless you trust them. You are welcome at the border of the forest west of the Hokage's office, at the mountain wall. Furthermore, there was a personal message for everyone. Hinata left his house after they watched a movie and he escorted her home. When they arrived at the gate, Hinata checked with her Byakugan before they entered to see if Neji wasn't watching again. It was safe and they walked to her room. I'll discuss the matter with my father tomorrow morning, she said as he moved closer to her. If there's anything else let me know, he said before intensely kissing her goodnight. When Hinata woke up it was still early in the morning and so she took a long shower before she went to the living room for breakfast. Her father, sister and Neji sat there and looked up when she came in. Neji and Hinabi had received the letters and kept quiet as she sat down. I thought you left, Neji said as he couldn't bear the silence. I need to do something first, Hinata almost whispered as she turned to her father. The moment she looked at him he knew what was to come. You do realize the problems this will make, right? He just said as he firmly locked their eyes. It never happened before, two clan leaders, he said as he tried to figure out how she thought about it. I'm not a clan head yet, she replied as she looked up. You are 1 year away from marrying the second son of the Kendijo family and that contract was singed 19 years ago. He forced out. I have nothing to do with that, I choose for myself. She said as she stood up again. I came to ask for your blessing, not criticism. She said as Hiashi stood up as well. But the contract, he was interrupted by Hinabi. If Oni-chan wants it this way let her. She yelled before she gave her father a furious look and turned to Hinata and nodded. Hinata felt good, she finally had the courage to stand against her father's will and immediately she found support from people she didn't expect. Neji stood up as well. If you excuse me, Hiashi-sama, I know he will take good care of her, he said. Neji made a slight bow and left the room. Hiashi, feeling defeated, fell down to his seat on the ground. He made an impression to the clan council that I didn't expect. I do not see him as the former boy he was. He is now a respected leader and soon he'll achieve even more, but until then, a silence ruled the room for a while until he whispered. I need to speak to him, was all he said when he left the room as well. Hinata was filled with joy as her sister cheered, half knowing what was going on. That evening came and Naruto and Hinata overlooked the whole gathering from a distance. Naruto wore the same outfit as he wore at their last mission and Hinata wore a light purple with a white and black pattern on it. They watched as they saw the last guests arrive. They walked to the group, Hinata on his left arm, and greeted them. Most of the group was in casual clothing and there were a few faces Naruto didn't recognize. Naruto was a bit surprised to see Temari in a dress, hanging on to Shikamaru, but even more when he saw Gaara. Before his mission he got to know his student and he knew then that she was seeing him more as a human than a demon. Now she was aged more and she wore a long dress that matched Gaara's outfit who seemed to try to smile. He even didn't bring his sand. Luckily that he was in town for some contract about the academy, Naruto thought as he looked at the Kazekage and his family. Then he almost had a heart attack. He saw Lee standing there, laughing as a blushing Sakura held him. She was whispering something into his ear which made him laugh even more. I see a lot has changed, he whispered to Hinata as he saw some other of his friends that were now couples. He saw Ino with Chuji. He definitely looked different since the last time he saw him and after a closer look he saw that he lost a lot of weight and was pretty muscled. Kiba was sitting on a Kamaru with a girl that Naruto didn't recognize in front of him that was petting a Kamaru. He saw Neji and Tenten talking to Shino and Konohamaru and his team were on the side with Hinabi and a friend of her. All were shocked as they saw Naruto and Hinata like that walking their way. Naruto wore a huge grin and smiled at his friends while he greeted them. Good evening all, I'll bet you're curious to my new house. Naruto smiled and most of them laughed. You got a new house. And, don't tell us you're the new clan leader. Was heard from him as he laughed and nodded, just follow us. He pointed the forest and they went on their way. After a small walk the mansion appeared and most of them were stunned. The huge house and surroundings made a literally stunning impression. When Naruto went to the front gate and unlocked it, everyone hurried in as they found the garden. Hinata took most of the girls and showed them around while Naruto went with his friends and showed them the house and everything. After the small tour they went to the living room where some snacks stood and they sat down to talk about everything that happened. Most of them couldn't believe it, but when Neji supported his words they almost fell down. When the girls were done they also arrived at the living room and found the guys. They sat down in a corner and talked about something different, his proposal. Are you serious? Sakura said. Is it even possible? Tenten asked. Neji is a branch member and even I'm not allowed to be with him when another Hyuga is close. She smiled sadly. Hinata just smiled broadly. This morning I asked my father, he just needed to speak to Naruto-kun. That afternoon after shopping for this, he went to my father and I spied on him from a distance. She smiled even more while all the others kept the silence complete. When he arrived at the training hall and entered, my father sat in the middle, meditating. Naruto just sat down in front of him and gave a small bow before he started talking. Your daughter and I both love each other more than we know, Hiashi-sama. You made a good suggestion at the clan head meeting. One cannot be the leader of a clan consisting of one. We both knew this was coming. Then a silence was kept for a few minutes when suddenly Naruto kneeled as he looked at my father. I hereby ask for your daughter's hand, for your blessing and for peace between our clans. My father G Naruto by his shoulder and just said, take good care of her. If you'll leave her heart broken or hurt I'll hunt you down and make sure you won't live to tell the story. After that he stood up and continued, you have my blessing. My daughter knows for herself to whom she gives her life and the peace between our clans. We'll see about that. Especially now that you have my daughter. He ended as he sat down again and continued meditating as Naruto walked back to me and just smiled, knowing that I saw it. Most of them giggled or even laughed and Tenten was amazed by the story of how easy it went for Naruto. After Naruto told the guys about it most laughed there except Gaara who just managed to get a slight lift on the sides of his mouth. The party went on and after some time the couples appeared to be seating together and Naruto and Hinata laughed when they found Hinabi and Konohamaru in a corner together, both blushing like mad that they've been caught. Somewhere in the evening Naruto found Gaara on sitting outside where they talked for a while. Finally Naruto came to the point he looked forward to. How did you become Kazekage and do the villagers threat you better? He asked as Gaara looked up and tried to smile. I was the strongest and kept an active role in our village. I always helped out whenever I could, and now, since just before I became Kazekage, I received respect and they treated me equal. People are not afraid to look at me, they talk to me and smile for the first time. I think it began when Matsuri became my student. Ever since then she and others began to think of me as human. He said as they looked into the house, they saw her and some other girls chat about some girls' stuff and laugh. Naruto smiled and gave Gaara a little poke. So, you found your first love he. Naruto laughed and fell down as he saw something what he would never expect. Gaara's face grew a bright red blush and he suddenly had a panicked look. No, it's not LL like that. He muttered but Naruto kept laughing. Naruto crawled up again and sat down next to him. I'm going to marry her soon. He nodded to Hinata as he continued, I hope you can be there. Gaara widened his eyes and looked at him as a slight smile appeared. I'd be glad too. He sealed his words with a slight nod as he looked to the garden again. Suddenly they heard a big splash and everyone in the room looked up as well. They walked to the back and found Kiba, Akamaru and his girlfriend that all fell in the water, laughing. Late in the night the last left as Naruto and Hinata closed the gate. Suddenly she was shocked as she saw Naruto walk into the room. Naruto cleaned the table and left the room. Was that a bunshin? She asked as she saw him walk upstairs. Yay. While I was cooking I had an idea. I made a few bunshins, most of them are reading in the library, one was cleaning and one was sent off to the Hokage's office. She called for me this morning, he simply said as he turned to her and gave her a peck on the nose. Whenever a bunshin disappears I receive its memory, so at this moment I am, sort of speak, reading 6 different books of my family techniques and history and I cleaned the house. Also, I expect the clone to arrive at Tsunade around an hour ago, so I expect his memory any time now. He smiled as he suddenly widened his eyes. Tsunade is expecting me this afternoon at 5 o'clock at the top of the Hokage's office. She is going to let the whole village know of my new rank and position, he said as he explained what his clone just received. He stood up and smiled broadly. One of the clones found something interesting in the closet of the Master Bee. Wait here, he said as he walked upstairs. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.